Have you ever watched her walk out like it was sudden, even though the relationship had been dying right in front of you for months? The shock isn't just that she left, it's that she left with calm. No begging, no long speech, no trembling voice. Just a quiet, settled decision you can't argue with. And you stand there trying to rewind time, trying to find the moment you lost her, because in your mind, she was still there yesterday. But what you didn't see is that she stopped being there a long time ago. Here's the disturbing truth. Most women don't leave men physically first. They leave mentally first. They start living a separate life inside their head while still smiling at you in the kitchen. And by the time you feel the distance, she's already processed the breakup in silence. You're not watching a decision being made. You're watching a decision being delivered. Reason 1. She leaves in silence first, and men misread that silence as peace. She isn't calm. She's shutting down to protect herself. The conversations get shorter. The details disappear. She stops telling you about her day, not because nothing happened, but because she's no longer trying to be understood by you. When she talks, it's functional. Logistics, updates, nothing that risks rejection, nothing that asks you to show up emotionally. And the cruel part is, you like it at first. The house feels quieter, less tension, fewer arguments. You tell yourself, we're finally good. But that quiet isn't harmony, it's resignation. It's the moment she decides arguing is pointless, so she stops. She becomes fine because fine doesn't require vulnerability. Fine doesn't invite disappointment. Here's the moment everything quietly changes. You stop noticing her because she stops demanding to be noticed. She used to ask questions, push for conversations, bring up issues that annoyed you. Now she doesn't. And you call it maturity, you call it growth, but it's often the exact opposite. It's her rehearsing life without you. Silence is her practice run. You'll see it in the tiny details. She stops sending photos, stops sharing little wins, stops venting when she's stressed. She starts processing pain alone, which means she's building a life where you're not required. And the more she practices being alone while in a relationship, the easier it becomes to leave you when she finally decides to move. Reason 2. The emotional exit starts early, usually the first time she felt alone while you were still there. That's the part men don't count as damage because it doesn't look dramatic. It's you on your phone while she's talking. It's you saying later and never returning. It's you dismissing something she cared about because it didn't seem important to you. It's you making her feel like she's too much, so she learns to become less. After that first loneliness, she starts collecting evidence, not like a detective with a clipboard. Quietly, internally. She begins to build a story about you that you don't hear until it's finished. Small betrayals of trust stack up into a narrative. He doesn't listen. He doesn't keep his word. He doesn't notice me unless I'm upset. And once she has a narrative, every new mistake fits inside it like it was always meant to be there. This is the part nobody talks about. Her affection can fade before her loyalty does. She might still cook, still show up, still be present in the routine, but the warmth behind it changes. It becomes duty, not desire. And men confuse duty for love because duty looks stable. Duty looks safe. Until one day duty stops, and you realize you were living with a woman who had already detached in stages. Reason 3. Small disappointments add up, and that's why it looks sudden at the end. It's rarely one big mistake. It's a pattern that makes her feel unseen. Every broken promise teaches her that your words don't mean anything. Every time you say, I will, and then don't, you train her nervous system to stop expecting you. Repeated neglect turns love into quiet self-respect issues for her. She starts asking herself questions she won't say out loud. Why am I begging for basics? Why do I keep choosing someone who doesn't choose me back? And here's the dark irony. She forgives early, then remembers later when she's done. When she still loves you, she interprets your behavior in the best light. She protects the relationship from the truth. She tells herself you're tired, stressed, busy, distracted. But when she gets close to leaving, she replays everything with new eyes. Those same events become proof. Little letdowns stack until she feels stupid for staying. That feeling stupid, changes a woman fast. Each disappointment lowers her respect, and desire follows respect like a shadow. She may still sleep with you. She may still laugh sometimes, but something in her closes. And once a woman feels disrespected or taken for granted, attraction can't breathe. It becomes performance. It becomes keeping things normal, while she privately grieves what she hoped you would be. Here's a quiet sign men miss. Eventually, she stops reacting because reacting never changed anything. She doesn't get loud. She doesn't cry. She stops. And when a woman stops reacting, it's not because you fixed it. It's because she stopped believing you will. Reason 4. She stops asking, then she stops caring. And that's the most dangerous phase because you'll think things are better. Asking is effort. Complaining is effort. Trying to talk is effort. When she stops doing those things, she's conserving energy. She realizes she can't argue you into valuing her, so she stops negotiating her basic needs. Her silence isn't acceptance. It's emotional resignation. You'll notice it in the way she answers you. Short, neutral, polite. No edge, no heat. She isn't trying to win anymore. She isn't trying to be right. She isn't trying to be close. She's just trying to get through the day without bleeding. And politeness, in a relationship, is often the end. Because politeness is what you use with strangers, not with someone you're still emotionally invested in. This is the part that feels slightly evil when you recognize it. She gives you peace because she's preparing her own peace. She stops seeking reassurance because she stopped needing you. She starts sleeping earlier, going on walks alone, listening to music with headphones, smiling at texts you can't see. Not because she's cheating, sometimes she is, sometimes she isn't, but because she's building a private world where your absence doesn't hurt as much. And you might even like her more in this phase because she's easy. She doesn't complain, she doesn't push, she doesn't demand. But what you're enjoying is a woman who has given up on being met. You're enjoying the version of her that stopped expecting you to be a man. Reason 5. Resentment replaces desire. And resentment is stored anger that never got resolved, only buried. She starts seeing your flaws as character, not mistakes. She stops believing you didn't mean it. She stops giving you benefit of the doubt. And once that shift happens, everything you do reads darker. A joke becomes disrespect. A delay becomes neglect. A disagreement becomes proof you don't care. Because resentment doesn't want to be calmed. It wants to be justified. You can feel it when she looks at you and something is missing. The softness, the admiration, the glow. She's still there physically, but emotionally she's watching you from far away. She stops fantasizing about you and starts replaying what hurt her. She remembers the nights she cried alone, the times she asked for something small and got dismissed, the moments she felt invisible. And the more she replays, the colder she gets. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Desire needs admiration, and resentment destroys admiration quietly. A woman can't stay turned on by a man she feels she has to drag through the relationship. She can't desire someone she has to mother emotionally. So love becomes duty until she breaks free. And when she finally breaks free, it looks like she flipped a switch. But she didn't flip it. She wore it down. Reason 6. She tests you one last time, and it almost never looks like a test. It looks like her getting quieter. It looks like her stopping the reminders. It looks like her giving you one more clean chance to notice what you've been ignoring without her having to beg again. She pulls back just enough to create a small space. Then she watches what you do inside that space. She watches your effort when she stops prompting you. She watches whether you initiate because you want her, not because she's upset. She watches whether you keep your word without being policed. She watches whether you can handle a conversation without turning it into defense. And if you fail that last test, she doesn't escalate. She doesn't threaten. She stops trying permanently. Here's the brutal thing about the last test. It's often about respect, not romance. Respect shows up in tiny behaviors: being on time, following through, listening the first time, protecting her dignity in public, not making her feel like she has to compete with your distractions. It's boring on paper, but it's the foundation of her desire. If you can't do the boring parts, she stops believing in the future parts. And this is why the breakup looks sudden from your side. Because her last test happens while you're still living like nothing is urgent. You're still relaxed, still assuming she'll talk if something's wrong, still using her presence as proof that everything is fine. Meanwhile, she's grading you in silence and you don't even know the exam started. Now pay attention, because this next piece is where men panic themselves into regret. When she gets quiet, when she gets polite, when she stops asking, you finally wake up. You buy flowers, you plan dates, you start saying the right things. And she looks at you with this strange, tired face. Not grateful, not impressed, almost sad. Because to her, your sudden effort proves you always could have done it. You just didn't until you felt her leaving. Here's the moment everything quietly changes again. She stops being impressed by promises. She needs proof, and proof takes time. But she's out of time emotionally. She's been paying into a relationship that kept withdrawing. So when you finally deposit something, it doesn't feel romantic. It feels late. It feels like panic. And if you're honest, it is panic. It's the fear of losing access. It's the fear of being the man who got left. It's the fear of the story. And fear produces intensity that looks like love, but it isn't love. It's bargaining. It's you trying to buy back what you ignored. Reason 7. Peace feels better than hope, and that's the phase where she becomes quietly dangerous to your comfort. Hope keeps her emotionally on edge. Hope keeps her waiting. Hope keeps her explaining the same pain in different words. But when hope starts feeling like humiliation, she reaches for something colder. Peace. Peace looks like her choosing calm over chaos, even if it means losing you. She stops fighting for connection because fighting keeps her nervous system in a cage. She gets tired of loving someone who makes her feel alone. So she starts imagining life without you, and the scary part is, she doesn't feel devastated. She feels lighter. Relief shows up before grief, and relief is what makes her brave. You'll notice her respect fading before she goes, not in insults, in the absence of admiration. She stops looking at you like a man who leads her life forward. She starts looking at you like a problem she's been managing. And once you become a problem, she begins solving you out of her life. She'd rather be lonely than constantly disappointed, because loneliness is clean. Disappointment is a slow poison. When she reaches that peace, her body is still beside you, but her mind is already somewhere else. She's grieving while still with you. She's saying goodbye in her head while you're arguing about small things out loud. And if you don't understand this part, you'll keep thinking the breakup was about the final argument, when really the final argument was just the last sound before the door closed. This is where the script flips inward, because the real question isn't why women leave mentally first, it's why you didn't notice her leaving. Why you needed the threat of losing her to finally see her. Why you felt safe when she was unhappy, and only became alert when she got quiet. Men confuse presence with loyalty. If she's still in the house, still answering, still doing the routine, you assume she's still yours. So you stop courting, you stop checking in, you stop leading. You treat stability like a permission slip to relax, and you don't realize stability without attention turns into rot. And the ego helps you miss it, because as long as she's physically there, you can pretend you're winning. You can pretend you're still the man she chose. Her silence feels like peace, so you take it, even though that silence is a funeral you're standing inside. Then one day you finally look up and realize she's grieving while still with you. Not loudly, quietly. She's saying goodbye in her head while you're thinking the relationship is fine. And what scares you isn't just losing her, it's seeing how easily she learned to live without you while you were still right there. So here's the inward flip you might resist. It felt sudden because you weren't watching. You were living inside routine. You were taking comfort in her tolerance. You let her carry the emotional weight, let her care louder, let her initiate repair. And when she stopped, you mistook it for calm. There's usually one final scene before she goes for real. A small moment where she pulls back and watches whether you step forward on your own. Not with panic, not with a speech, with consistent presence. And if you fail that moment, she doesn't argue. She just lets it go. She doesn't slam the door. She doesn't explode. She doesn't demand one more conversation. She simply stops reaching. And that's the part men don't recognize as the ending, because it's quiet. But quiet endings are the most final. Loud endings still have emotion. Quiet endings are what happens when emotion has been used up. Here's the moment everything becomes irreversible. She starts protecting her peace more than she protects the relationship. Not out of hatred, out of exhaustion. She begins choosing sleep over late-night talks, friends over fixing, solitude over being disappointed again. And every time she chooses her peace, she strengthens the version of herself that exists without you. You might notice she's nicer. That's the sick part. She becomes more polite, more agreeable, less reactive. And you feel relief because the tension is gone. You think, we're good again. But what you're feeling isn't love returning. It's her emotional detachment removing friction. When she stops needing anything from you, she also stops needing to fight you. This is the part nobody tells you because it sounds brutal. A woman's calm can be a coffin. Not because she's cold, because she's done. And when she's done, she's not trying to convince you. She's trying to survive you without bleeding anymore. Reason 8. Her respect fades before she goes, and respect fades long before the breakup conversation happens. Respect isn't just admiration. It's the belief that you will lead yourself, that you will keep your word, that you will notice what matters without being begged. When that belief collapses, she stops seeing you as a man she can build with. She starts seeing you as a man she has to manage. And management kills desire. Management turns romance into responsibility. It turns affection into supervision. It turns her into a mother, a coach, a reminder system. She hates that role, even if she doesn't say it, because it makes her feel masculine in the relationship. It makes her feel like she's carrying the weight. And when she feels like the stronger one, she slowly stops wanting you. Watch the evidence. She stops asking for help because she doesn't trust you to come through. She starts doing things alone. She makes decisions without consulting you. She stops involving you in plans, not out of spite, out of practicality, because she learned that depending on you leads to disappointment. And once she learns that, she starts building a life where she doesn't need you. Here's the sick part. The more independent she becomes inside the relationship, the more fine she seems. But that independence isn't empowerment. It's preparation. It's her building exits. It's her practicing the exact routines she'll need after she leaves. Reason 9. She grieves while still with you. And this is why the breakup feels like a betrayal from your side, because you're hearing the ending for the first time. She's hearing it for the 100th. She already cried about it alone. She already talked to herself about it in the shower. She already sat in the car after an argument and stared out the window thinking, I can't do this forever. So when the final conversation happens, she sounds cold. Not because she never loved you, because she already spent her emotion. She already burned through the grief while you were still expecting the relationship to stay on autopilot, and you can't compete with that kind of closure. You can't outspeak her months of silent acceptance. You can't show her one grand gesture and erase 1,000 small dismissals. You can't convince a woman to return to a place she mentally escaped from already. Here's what you do in that moment, and it's what makes it worse. You tried to negotiate with intensity. You promise everything. You become the man you should have been, but only in emergency mode. You say you'll change, you'll listen, you'll be present. And she looks at you with that tired sadness again, because your urgency proves the painful truth. You were capable the entire time. You just didn't feel it was necessary until she stopped caring. That's why her mind doesn't reopen, Because she doesn't want temporary effort. She wants a man who doesn't need a threat to show up. She wants consistency, not crisis behavior. Now listen carefully. This isn't about blaming you for everything. It's about understanding the exact mechanism that creates sudden endings. Men don't lose women in one day. Men lose women in small moments they don't take seriously, because those moments don't feel dramatic. The phone in your hand while she's talking. The promise you didn't keep because you got distracted. The joke at her expense you dismissed as not that deep. The time she tried to explain something and you turned it into a debate. The way you assumed she'd always be there because she always had been. Those moments don't feel like breakups, but they are. Here's the descent that most men hate. When she finally leaves, it's already over. It's not she gave up out of nowhere. It's that she finished the ending privately, and you only saw the last page. By the time her feet move, her heart has been gone. And the most painful part is what happens after. You start seeing everything clearly. You replay the small moments. You remember her face when she asked, and how you brushed it off. You remember the nights she tried to talk, and you treated it like an inconvenience. You remember the look she had right before she stopped asking. And you realize you weren't losing her in the argument. You were losing her in the silence between the arguments. So what do you do with this without turning it into shame? You stop living like love is a permanent resource. You stop treating a woman's patience as proof that she's fine. You stop waiting for explosions to signal a problem. Because women rarely explode at the end. They explode at the beginning, when they still care, when they still believe you might meet them. And you start paying attention to the real warning signs. When she stops bringing you her inner world. When she stops complaining. When she becomes polite. When she stops asking. When she starts choosing peace over repair. Those aren't good phases. Those are endings in slow motion. But here's the cold part you need to accept. You can't save something once she's mentally gone. You can only prevent it from getting there. That's why the idea of winning her back often fails, because you're trying to pull someone back into a house they already moved out of in their mind. If she's already at that stage, the only thing you can do is stop humiliating yourself. Don't bargain. Don't beg. Don't flood her with panic love, because panic doesn't rebuild respect. Panic confirms what made her leave, that you only show up when you're afraid. And if she's not fully gone yet, the move isn't a speech, it's consistent change that shows up without being asked. It's you leading yourself, keeping your word, being present without performing, taking responsibility without making her your supervisor. It's boring, and it's rare, and it's the only thing that actually keeps her mind from leaving. Now let's end with the truth that cuts through everything. A woman leaving mentally first isn't just her story, it's a mirror. It reveals what you've been ignoring in your own life, your tendency to coast, to assume, to relax into entitlement, to confuse routine with connection. It reveals how easily you mistake silence for peace and tolerance for love. And if you keep making that mistake, it won't just happen with her. It will happen again. Different woman, same ending, same shock, same, I didn't see it coming. Because the worst part isn't her leaving. The worst part is realizing she left months ago while you were right there, and you didn't even notice. If this made you see something you were avoiding, you already know what to do.